Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Earwax. It's Colin, and today we're going to be doing a brief review of the new Black Pistol Fire album, Flagrant Act of Bliss. Now, this review is going to be a little bit shorter than my normal reviews. I apologize for that. I'm definitely going to get back in doing some longer format reviews soon. You're going to be doing some more track by track breakdowns. But honestly, today was just kind of a little crazy. I didn't have the time to dedicate a full track by track breakdown. So just going to give some overall thoughts. Won't be quite as in depth as my Zach Bryan review that I did a couple weeks ago, but still wanted to talk about it. So when I was looking at the list of albums being released this week, there was actually a couple other ones that I was kind of going back and forth on about doing a review. Specifically, there was the new Poppy and the new Megadeth albums that came out this week. And I was going back and forth between doing one of those two. And then literally this morning when I was looking at Spotify and just seeing what other albums have been released, I came across the new Black Pistol Fire album. So if you're not super familiar with Black Pistol Fire, they are probably one of the most, at least in my opinion, underrated of the sort of garage rock leaning sort of blues influenced indie rock bands of the past 10-15 years. So I got into them in 2017 when they released their fifth studio album, I believe, in Deadbeat Graffiti, and I love that album. I went back, listened to a lot of the discography, but that is still my favorite of their stuff. Again, they're I feel like they're one of the more underrated bands in a scene that has a lot of other bands that have kind of populated this space for a long time. I mean, you've got Arctic Monkeys, you've got White Stripes, you've got Black Keys, all sort of really owned this space in the early to mid 2000s. You've got some other bands that have kind of come out of it as well in the more recent years. But yeah, they definitely have never, I feel been at the forefront of this scene, which I think is kind of a crime because they're really, really good. So this album is their seventh studio album. There was one in between this and Deadbeat Graffiti, which I listened to. I wasn't crazy about, but it was still pretty solid. So when I saw that, they had a new album out, which I didn't even know until this morning, I was like, yeah, this is the one that I want to listen to. Did actually end up listening to some of the Poppy albums today. Pretty good. It's not, Poppy's not my all-time favorite, but I've been warming up to her in the past couple of years. I'll probably listen to the Megadeth album at some point, but honestly, I'm not a huge Megadeth fan, and the teasers that I have heard up until this point have not been promising. So I'm kind of glad I didn't do that one because I feel like it would have been a negative review, but you never know. But yeah, so Black Pistol Fire, this album is definitely I don't want to say it's them taking a bit of a risk or a creative or genre departure from their normal sound, which is just a two-person in your face sort of garage rock with some blues influence. But they definitely expanded upon that a little bit. And I think it worked fairly well. There's moments of this album that I don't absolutely love, but that's okay. I mean, they've never been a band that I think is incredibly groundbreaking. Their sound, their style has been done before, as other bands are doing it around this time as well. But they do it very, very well. And I think that they'll always sort of be at the sort of echelon that they're at now, where they're good. They, if you see them live, they're a great time. I've seen them once. And, they're never going to put out anything bad. But I don't think they're ever going to break into anything just monumental or groundbreaking or truly exceptional. That being said, though, that's perfectly fine. There's plenty of bands that just consistently put out good music and stick to their sound and stick to their style. And so to see a band that I feel has kind of done that for almost their entire career take a little bit of risk on this album was refreshing. Again, I don't think every single one of them paid off, but there was definitely moments that I thought were unique, at least in their sort of discography. So you do have a lot of songs that kind of stick to their core sound. You've got the opening track in High Horse. You've got American Wet Dream. You've got Low Twang. All of them are really, really fun. Actually, I like Low Twang a lot. It's probably one of my favorite songs on the album. Lyrically, it talks a lot about our addiction to social media and how much we care what other people think of us, which obviously ironic for someone on YouTube to love that theme so much. But yeah, so they definitely have some of that core. Lyrically, I feel like this album definitely has some heavier themes, more personal themes than we've heard on some of their past releases. And then they've got songs like Rock Bottom, featuring Gary Clark Jr., that's got a little bit more of that blues influence. It's got a little bit of almost like a twang to some of it. And yeah, I do like sort of that direction they went on a couple of the songs. They get more into it later. There's some songs that really bring some sort of like country ballad production. There's some like strings that get thrown in. There's there's elements to some songs on this album that I definitely haven't experienced on a Black Pistol Fire record so far. And then there's a couple songs that lean into sort of the bass heavy like folk pop that got really popular like 5 or 6 years ago with artists like Kaleo or like 2 Feet. And I think that it's an interesting, like, it's not the first time that they've kind of added some like heavier bass or like electronic elements behind their standard sort of like garage rock or even like southern like, you know, folk rock influences, harder edge of folk rock, but still. But with songs like Own Time and Faded Blue, it was definitely an interesting addition to what up until like that point on the album felt a little bit more straightforward, even with some of like the twang and like the more or bluesy sort of direction they were going with some of the songs. How heavy they went on like some of the more crunchy bass in moments was definitely interesting. I didn't hate it. It kind of came a little out of left field for me. And then you've got songs like Heart Into Submission, which feels a bit generic. Like you can get some sort of almost like Cage the Elephant or Sir Sly influence on this. Just more sort of generic bluesy indie rock that has been dominating the indie radio stations. Maybe not so much anymore, but definitely were for like from like 2010 to like 2020. But yeah, again, overall, I do really like this album. You've got like the real heavy like country vibes of songs like Downer. Then you've got the closing track of Cry Like a Man, which definitely I think just lyrically is fantastic. You know, teaching someone how to love again, be vulnerable. Like I think that's something, especially as like, you know, someone in their mid 30s, early mid 30s. You know, becoming more vulnerable as a man is definitely something that I think a lot of people can relate to or should relate to more. And then you've got some really just solid songs on here that kind of combine all the different elements we've gotten up until this point. With like Blood Buzz is probably like I'd say my absolute favorite song on the album. But yeah, it's solid. Like if you like this type of, again, sort of like blues influenced garage indie rock, that, you know, they've got some sort of country elements here and there. They do a pretty good job of like the production level on this album. The songwriting is good, it's catchy. Again, not mind-blowing, not groundbreaking. It's by no means a masterpiece, but it's a fun album. It's well done. I think lyrically they get a bit more introspective than they have in the past. And I do definitely recommend giving this one a listen. So overall, I'm feeling like just a straight up B on this. Again, I don't think it's incredible, but it's very good. I enjoyed listening to it. I'll probably throw it on a few more times. And there's definitely a few songs that I've pulled out of this album to throw on a couple playlists. But yeah, definitely go check it out if you haven't yet. Black Pistol Fire, Flagrant, Act of Bliss. Definitely a solid listen. Well, cool guys, thanks so much for watching. That's going to be it for me this week. I got some more stuff coming out soon. Thanks so much. If you haven't yet, please comment, like, subscribe. And as always, I will talk to y'all later. Peace.